What would you do if your deepest, most desperate prayer could change not just your life, but the course of an entire nation's future? This may seem like an impossible thought, yet it's exactly what happened with a woman named Hannah. Her unwavering faith in the midst of heartache set off a series of events that shaped history. In this video, we'll uncover how one woman's powerful prayer led to the rise of one of Israel's greatest prophets, Samuel. Her story is filled with lessons about faith, sacrifice, and the incredible impact of a mother's prayers. Stick around as we explore the legacy of Hannah's faith that still inspires people to this day. Hannah's painful struggle. Imagine living in a society where your worth as a woman was largely defined by your ability to bear children. Now, imagine the immense pain of being unable to conceive, coupled with the constant reminder of your failure from those around you. This was the heartbreaking reality for Hannah. For years, she longed to be a mother, but her prayers went unanswered and her arms remained empty. Her husband, Elkanah, adored her deeply and tried to comfort her, but even his love couldn't heal her wounds. Worse, there was Peninnah, Elkanah's other wife, who took pleasure in taunting and mocking Hannah for her inability to bear children. She seemed to take every opportunity to remind Hannah of her perceived failure, intensifying her emotional torment. Yet in the midst of this deep suffering, Hannah's faith did not waver. Rather than turning her pain inward or succumbing to bitterness, she made a choice that would ultimately change the course of her life. She turned to God. It was in her darkest moment, when the weight of her sorrow seemed unbearable, that she poured out her soul to the one who had the power to change her circumstances. This act of trust would soon set in motion a remarkable transformation, not just for Hannah, but for the entire nation of Israel. Hannah's prayer of faith. In the midst of her overwhelming heartache, Hannah did something extraordinary. She prayed. But not just any prayer. This wasn't a desperate plea for God to simply change her situation. Instead, it was a bold and selfless promise. In her prayer, she didn't ask for a child solely for her own benefit, but vowed that if God would grant her a son, she would dedicate him to the Lord's service for his entire life. This was no ordinary prayer. It was a prayer of trust and surrender. Hannah didn't just ask God for what she wanted. She offered up her deepest desires to him, placing her hopes in his hands and acknowledging that his plan for her life was greater than her own. She recognized that God's will was far more important than her personal desires, and she was willing to surrender the very thing she most longed for, her future as a mother, if it meant fulfilling God's greater purpose. This kind of faith, particularly when the stakes are as high as a mother's yearning for a child, is rare. But Hannah's prayer wasn't just about asking God to fulfill her need. It was about letting go of her control and trusting God's perfect timing and plan for her life. God's response to Hannah's faith. Hannah's unwavering faith did not go unnoticed. God, in his perfect timing, heard her heartfelt prayer and answered it. She conceived and gave birth to a son, whom she named Samuel. This was a moment of incredible joy and relief for Hannah, a long-awaited blessing that finally came to fruition. But the story doesn't end with Samuel's birth. After Samuel was weaned, Hannah demonstrated the depth of her commitment and obedience to God by fulfilling her vow. She took her young son to the temple, where he would serve under the priest Eli, dedicating him completely to the Lord's service. Imagine the overwhelming emotions Hannah must have experienced as she parted with the very child she had longed for, prayed for, and finally received. The pain of separation must have been almost unbearable, yet, in a beautiful act of trust and devotion, she let go, knowing that her sacrifice would honor God's purpose. Her obedience, though difficult, set in motion a future that extended far beyond her understanding. Samuel grew up to become one of Israel's greatest prophets, leading the nation with unparalleled wisdom and courage. Hannah's faith didn't just bring about the birth of her son. It contributed to the shaping of Israel's future, fulfilling God's plan for the nation in ways she could never have anticipated. Hannah's sacrifice. Hannah's story teaches us the power of sacrifice. She didn't just make a promise to God in words, she followed through with action. She could have kept Samuel with her, but she chose to give him up for a greater purpose. This decision was no small thing. As a mother, the pain of separation would have been overwhelming, yet Hannah's love for God was greater than her love for her son. She trusted that God had a greater plan for Samuel, and her act of obedience paved the way for Samuel to fulfill his destiny. Sacrifice isn't easy, but it's in those moments of sacrifice that our faith is tested and refined. Hannah's willingness to let go of what she loved most set a powerful example for all of us. The legacy of Samuel. Samuel's life is a testament to the far-reaching impact of Hannah's faith. As the last judge of Israel and one of its greatest prophets, Samuel played a pivotal role in the nation's history. He was the one who anointed Saul as the first king of Israel, and later he anointed David, the man after God's own heart, to be the next king. Samuel's leadership brought stability to Israel and led the people back to a deeper relationship with God. His influence was profound, and it all started with a mother's prayer. Hannah's sacrifice didn't just impact her son's life, it changed the course of Israel's future. Samuel's legacy is a direct result of the faith and obedience of his mother. The power of a mother's prayer. Hannah's prayer reveals the power of a mother's faith. Mothers often face challenges and heartache that others may not fully understand. But in the midst of those struggles, they have the potential to move mountains through prayer. Hannah's story shows us that God hears the cries of the brokenhearted, and He is moved by genuine faith. When a mother prays with a heart of surrender and trust, it doesn't just change her life, it can change the lives of those around her. Hannah's prayer didn't just bring about the birth of a child, it set in motion a chain of events that changed an entire nation. The power of a mother's prayer is truly limitless. Hannah's example for us. Hannah's story is not just a beautiful account of a woman who trusted in God. It is a blueprint for how we can live our lives. First, we see that God listens to our prayers, no matter how deep our pain or how long we've waited. Second, we learn that faith isn't just about asking for what we want. It's about surrendering our desires to God's will. Hannah didn't just ask for a child. She offered her hopes and dreams back to God. Third, we learn that sacrifice is a key component of true faith. It's easy to ask for blessings, but it takes real faith to give up what we most want in order to follow God's plan. Finally, Hannah's story shows us that our prayers and faith can have a ripple effect beyond our understanding. Just as Hannah's prayer changed the course of Israel's history, our prayers can have a lasting impact on the people and circumstances around us. Hannah's prayer is a powerful reminder of the depth of faith sacrifice, and trust in God. Her story teaches us that God hears our prayers, no matter how long it takes or how impossible the situation may seem. Through her example, we can learn to trust God with our deepest desires, knowing that His plans for us are greater than our own. If you've been inspired by Hannah's story, make sure to subscribe to Story of Grace for more incredible stories of faith and inspiration. Leave a comment below and share how Hannah's prayer has impacted your own life. Remember, just like Hannah, your faith has the power to change the world. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to Story of Grace to stay connected with us for more uplifting content.